I hired a cleaning lady while my son and his wife were on vacation. An hour later, she called in panic. "Sir, someone is crying in the attic. It's not the TV." I rushed there and opened their dirty secret. My name is Harold Mitchell. I'm 57 years old, and I've been retired for about 6 months now. Spent 35 years investigating insurance fraud for Pacific Northwest claims. So let's just say I know when something doesn't add up. You develop a sixth sense for lies after 3 decades of walking into staged car accidents and suspicious house fires. These days, I keep busy restoring old engines in my garage. Gives me something to do with my hands while my brain tries to forget all the creative ways people destroy things for money. Kevin is my only kid. He's 34 now, makes decent money as a regional sales manager for some tech company down in the Pearl District, around $92,000 a year. Last I heard. We used to be close, back when his mother walked out on us when he was 12. I raised him myself, worked double shifts to keep food on the table and pay for his college. Worked plenty of weekends too, investigating fraudulent claims while he was at baseball practice or doing homework at the kitchen table. Thought I did a pretty good job of it. Back then, Kevin would wait for me to get home, even if it was 8 or 9 at night. He'd want to hear about my cases, the weird stuff people tried to pull. "Did you catch any bad guys today, Dad?" He'd ask. I'd tell him the tame stories, the ones that wouldn't give him nightmares. How people staged slip and falls or tried to claim old damage was from recent storms. He was fascinated by the detective work, the way you had to piece together evidence to find the truth. "You're like Sherlock Holmes, but for insurance," he told me once when he was maybe 14. That was the best compliment I ever got. That was before he married Ashley 3 years ago. She's one of those Instagram people always taking pictures of her food and talking about building her brand. Has about 52,000 followers who apparently care what she thinks about overpriced coffee and designer handbags. The first time Kevin brought her to my place, she spent 15 minutes setting up the perfect shot of her dinner before it got cold, moved the salt shaker 3 times, adjusted the lighting, took about 30 photos of the same plate. Should have known then what I was dealing with. "It's for my feed," she explained when she saw my expression. "My followers expect a certain aesthetic." I didn't know what to say to that. In my world, you eat dinner while it's hot, and you don't document every meal like it's evidence in a court case. 3 years ago, right before they got married, I made what I thought was a generous gesture. I owned a nice 3-bedroom house on Maple Street, decent neighborhood in southeast Portland, nothing fancy, but solid. I'd been thinking about downsizing anyway. Figured a 1-bedroom apartment downtown would suit me better in retirement. So I signed the house over to Kevin. Well, not completely. I kept my name on the deed but gave them full rights to live there rent-free. Old habits from the insurance business, I guess. You learn to read the fine print. Always keep a paper trail. Never give up all your leverage. In my line of work, you see too many families torn apart by money disputes. I wanted to help Kevin, but I also wanted to protect myself if things went sideways. Kevin was over the moon. "Dad, this is incredible. Ashley and I won't forget this. We're going to take such good care of the place." Yeah. Well, people promise a lot of things when they're getting something for free. The change started almost immediately after the wedding. The weekly phone calls became every other week, then monthly, then just holidays. Kevin used to invite me over for Sunday dinner, or we'd catch a Blazers game together. After Ashley moved in, those invitations dried up. "We're just so busy getting settled, Dad," Kevin would say when I'd suggest stopping by. "The house is kind of a mess right now. Ashley's got all her stuff everywhere, and we're still figuring out the decorating. Maybe next month when things calm down." Next month never came. Then it became we're renovating the kitchen, or Ashley's working on a big campaign for her sponsors, or we're just swamped with work. The last time I was inside that house was about 18 months ago. Just before Thanksgiving, I'd called ahead, said I wanted to drop off some tools Kevin had borrowed. Ashley answered the door in yoga pants and a crop top, clearly annoyed at the interruption. "Oh, hi, Harold. Kevin didn't mention you were coming by. I called this morning. Left a message." "Right. Well, he's not here. He's at the gym. Maybe you could come back later." I could see past her into the living room. The place looked like a magazine spread, all white and gray. Those expensive throw pillows that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Everything was spotless, sterile. Like nobody actually lived there. "I'll just leave the tools in the garage," I said. "Actually, we're having some work done in the garage. Could you maybe bring them back another time?" That was the last time I set foot on the property I technically still owned. The message was clear enough. I wasn't welcome anymore. So I was surprised when my phone rang on June 3rd and Kevin's name popped up. "Hey Dad, need a favor," he said, skipping any kind of greeting. "No, how are you?" "No, sorry, I haven't called in 3 months." Straight to business, like I was some contractor he barely knew. "What do you need?" "Ashley and I are heading to Hawaii for 10 days, leaving tomorrow morning. We just realized the house needs a deep cleaning while we're gone, and we're completely swamped getting ready for the trip. Could you hire someone to do it? We'll pay you back, obviously." I set down my coffee and adjusted my glasses, a habit I'd developed during interrogations when I needed time to think. In 18 months, they couldn't spare 2 hours for their old man to visit, but now they needed me to arrange their maid service. "Why can't you hire someone yourselves?" "There are apps for that now, right? Like I said, we're swamped. You're retired. You've got the time." That edge creeping into his voice, the same tone he'd use when Ashley was being difficult about something. "It's not a big deal, Dad. Just a phone call. When your kid asks for help, even your ungrateful kid who's forgotten you exist, you say yes. That's just how it works when you're a father." "Fine, I'll handle it." "Great. Make sure they're thorough, though. Ashley wants everything spotless for when we get back. Baseboards, windows, the whole 9 yards. Oh, and the attic too. We've got some storage up there that needs organizing." He rattled off their flight details and hung up without so much as a thank you. I sat there, staring at my phone for a minute, wondering when my relationship with my son had turned so transactional. I called Jennifer Reynolds that afternoon. Jennifer and I went way back. Worked together on maybe a dozen cases over the years. Property damage claims mostly. Situations where we needed someone who could document a scene without missing the details that mattered. She had a sharp eye for inconsistencies, could spot when someone had staged damage to make it look worse than it was. After 15 years in the business, she'd gotten tired of dealing with fraudsters and started her own cleaning service. People's dirt is more honest than their lies, she'd told me when she made the switch. At least dust doesn't have an agenda. Smart woman. We'd kept in touch since I retired, exchanged Christmas cards, that sort of thing. She knew I was good for referrals. "Jennifer, it's Harold Mitchell. I need a favor." "Harold, how's retirement treating you? Still working on those old engines?" "Every day. Listen, I've got a cleaning job for you if you're interested. My son's place. He and his wife are going to Hawaii tomorrow. Want the house deep cleaned while they're gone." "Sure, I can do that. What's the address?" I gave her the Maple Street address and mentioned I still had a key. Didn't go into the whole story about technically still owning the place, but Jennifer didn't ask questions she didn't need answers to. Another thing I liked about her. "I can start first thing in the morning," she said. "Full service. Kitchen, bathrooms, windows, the works. Everything." They specifically mentioned the attic, too. "Apparently they've got some storage up there that needs attention, no problem. I'll bring my ladder." The next morning, June 4th, I drove over to Maple Street to let Jennifer in. Kevin and Ashley had already left for the airport, probably catching an early flight to avoid traffic. Or maybe they just couldn't risk running into me before they left. Either way, the house was empty when I pulled up. I hadn't been inside in 18 months, and the difference was jarring. Ashley had completely transformed the place from the comfortable family home I remembered into something that belonged in a design magazine. Everything was white and gray and cold, like a fancy hotel lobby. The walls that used to have Kevin's Little League photos and my old fishing pictures were now covered with black and white prints of Ashley and Kevin in various exotic locations. Beaches, mountain peaks, restaurant terraces. Perfect smiles, perfect clothes, perfect lives. Not a single picture included me. The kitchen where Kevin used to do his homework was now all marble countertops and stainless steel appliances. The living room where we used to watch Sunday football had been turned into some kind of photo studio, with ring lights and camera equipment set up in one corner. "This is where Ashley films her content," I explained to Jennifer when I saw her looking at the setup. "She's got about 52,000 people who follow her on Instagram." Jennifer just nodded politely. She'd seen enough houses to know when to keep her opinions to herself. "Nice place," she said, though I could tell she was thinking the same thing I was. It felt like a showroom, not a home. "Used to be warmer," I said. "All right, I'll leave you to it. Call me if you need anything." I headed back downtown to my apartment. The drive gave me time to think about how much had changed. When I first bought that house 15 years ago, I'd imagined Kevin bringing his own kids there someday. Grandchildren playing in the backyard, family barbecues, the kinds of memories that matter. Instead, it had become a backdrop for Ashley's social media empire. My apartment felt smaller when I got back, but it was mine. One bedroom near the Willamette, nothing fancy but comfortable. No ring lights or camera equipment, just space where I could work on my engines and read my books in peace. I'd been restoring a 1967 Mustang engine for the better part of 6 months, methodically rebuilding it piece by piece. There was something satisfying about taking something broken and making it work again. I was torquing down the cylinder heads when my phone rang around 11:30. Jennifer's name on the screen, and something in my gut went cold. In all the years I'd known her, Jennifer didn't rattle easily. She'd walked into houses with structural damage, crime scenes that needed documentation, places where things had gone very wrong. If something was shaking her up, it was serious, Mr. Mitchell. Her voice was different, strained. "I need you to come back here right now." I set down my torque wrench and wiped my hands on a shop rag. "What's wrong? What happened?" "There's someone in the attic, someone crying." I thought maybe it was a TV at first, or a radio left on, but I checked everything downstairs. "Harold, there's someone real up there, and they're crying like they're hurt or scared." The wrench clattered to the concrete floor. 35 years of insurance investigations. I'd seen things that stayed with you. Staged accidents that weren't staged at all. Fraud cases that turned into something darker when you dug deeper. Families who'd do anything for money, including things that made your stomach turn. I thought I was done with that world when I retired. "I'm coming, don't go up there. Stay downstairs and keep the doors locked." I grabbed my keys and ran. Made that drive in 12 minutes through downtown Portland traffic, running yellow lights and taking corners faster than I should have. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my mind was racing through possibilities, each one worse than the last. Someone crying in my son's attic. Someone real, not a recording, in a house I technically owned but hadn't been allowed to visit for a year and a half. In a house where Kevin and Ashley lived their perfect Instagram lives while keeping God knows what hidden upstairs. Jennifer was standing on the front porch when I pulled up, clutching her phone like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Her face was pale, and she'd seen enough insurance scams and staged scenes to know what real trouble looked like. "It's still going," she said, as I walked up the steps. "The crying stops and starts, but it's definitely a child. A little kid." I unlocked the front door and we went inside. The house was silent except for the hum of the central air conditioning and, faintly from somewhere above us, a soft hiccuping sound that made my blood run cold. A child crying, no doubt about it. Once you've investigated enough domestic cases, once you've documented enough scenes where families have secrets they'll kill to protect, you never forget that sound. The attic access was in the hallway ceiling, a pull-down ladder I'd installed myself about 10 years ago. I yanked the cord and the stairs unfolded with a metallic creak that seemed too loud in the silence. Jennifer stayed at the bottom, her cleaning supplies forgotten, while I climbed up into the darkness. The attic was stifling hot despite the June morning, thick with dust and stale air. Light filtered through a small circular window at the far end, casting long shadows across the plywood flooring. Boxes were stacked along the walls in neat rows. Christmas decorations, old clothes, photo albums, the accumulated memories of years past. But there was something else up there, something that didn't belong. In the far corner, tucked behind a stack of storage containers, was an old wooden wardrobe, Victorian-style dark walnut with brass handles. I recognized it from my mother's house, a piece Kevin had claimed after she died 5 years ago. But it was completely out of place up here in the storage area. The crying was coming from inside it. My investigation training kicked in automatically. Preserve the scene, document everything, secure any witnesses. But this wasn't an insurance claim. This was my son's house, my son's attic, and whatever was in that wardrobe was my son's secret. I approached slowly, my footsteps careful on the creaking plywood. The sound of crying grew clearer as I got closer. Soft, hiccuping sobs that belonged to someone very young and very frightened. I reached for the wardrobe handles and pulled both doors open at once. Inside was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old, huddled in the back corner of the wardrobe with her knees drawn up to her chest. Too thin, way too thin. Her dark hair was tangled and dirty, stuck to her head with sweat. She wore a faded pink t-shirt that was too small for her and shorts that had seen better days. Behind her, spread across the bottom of the wardrobe, was a thin camping mattress with a single pillow and a rumpled blanket. Plastic plates with dried food residue sat stacked to one side, along with a half-empty water bottle and what looked like a portable camping toilet. She was looking at me with huge, terrified brown eyes, her small body trembling. For a moment, I couldn't process what I was seeing, couldn't reconcile the evidence in front of me with any rational explanation. Then my professional instincts took over. Stay calm, establish trust, secure the victim, gather information. I crouched down slowly, making myself smaller and less threatening. Hey there, sweetheart. My name is Harold. I'm not going to hurt you. Can you tell me your name? She pressed herself further back into the corner, her breathing rapid and shallow. Fight or flight response, classic signs of trauma. It's okay, I said, keeping my voice as gentle as I could manage. I'm here to help. Are you hurt? Are you hungry or thirsty? She watched me for a long moment, those big eyes studying my face like she was trying to figure out if I was safe. Then in a whisper so quiet I almost missed it. Are you the cleaning lady's friend? Yes, I am. Jennifer called me because she heard you crying and got worried. She wanted to make sure you were okay. Fresh tears started rolling down her cheeks. I tried to be quiet. I tried so hard, like Daddy said, but I got scared. It gets so dark up here at night, and there are noises, and I thought maybe something bad was going to happen. You don't have to be quiet anymore. Nobody's going to hurt you. What's your name, sweetheart? Another long pause, then, Sophie. My name is Sophie. Sophie. I'd never heard Kevin mention anyone named Sophie. Ashley certainly never talked about any children. As far as I knew, they didn't have kids, didn't want kids, were too busy building their brand to think about starting a family. That's a pretty name. How old are you, Sophie? 5. I'll be 6 in August. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Are you really going to help me? I'm going to do everything I can. Sophie, can you tell me whose house this is? Who brought you here? Her eyes dropped to the floor of the wardrobe. My daddy. Kevin. He said I have to stay up here while he and Ashley go on their trip. He said to be very quiet and not make any noise and not come downstairs no matter what, and he'd be back soon. Her voice cracked. He said I'm supposed to stay hidden because Ashley doesn't like it when I'm around. And if anyone finds out I'm here, they'll take me away and I'll never see him again. The words hit me like a physical blow. My daddy, Kevin. This little girl was my granddaughter. Kevin had a child, had been keeping her hidden in his attic like some kind of shameful secret. My granddaughter, living in a wardrobe in the dark while they posted perfect vacation photos and built their Instagram empire. And I'd known nothing. Nothing at all. Sophie, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Kevin is my son. That makes me your grandfather, and I promise you, you're not staying up here anymore. Her eyes went wide with something that might have been hope. You're my grandpa, really, really. And we're going to get you out of here right now. I helped her stand up. Her legs were shaky, unsteady, like she hadn't been walking much lately. She was lighter than she should have been, and when I guided her toward the attic stairs, I could feel how frail she was through her thin shirt. Jennifer was waiting at the bottom of the ladder, and she gasped when she saw Sophie. Call 901, I told Jennifer, my voice harder than I'd intended. Tell them we found a child being kept in an attic. Tell them we need police and child protective services here immediately. Jennifer nodded and pulled out her phone, already dialing. I carried Sophie downstairs to the living room, that cold, sterile space that Ashley had designed for maximum visual impact. I sat her on the white leather couch and went to the kitchen to get her water and whatever food I could find. There wasn't much. Some crackers in the pantry, an apple in the refrigerator. She ate like she was starving, which she probably was. While Jennifer talked to the 911 dispatcher, I sat next to Sophie and felt the pieces of my life rearrange themselves into a horrible new picture. My son had a daughter, had been hiding her from me, from everyone, for God knows how long, had kept her locked away in an attic wardrobe like she was something to be ashamed of. The sirens started in the distance, growing louder as they approached the house. Sophie flinched at the sound and grabbed my hand. It's okay, I told her, squeezing her small fingers gently. Those are the good guys. They're coming to help us. She looked up at me with those enormous brown eyes. Is Daddy going to be mad at me? I thought about Kevin somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, probably sipping champagne in first class while posting photos of airplane meals, living his perfect life while his daughter sat alone in the dark, afraid and hungry and forgotten. Don't you worry about your daddy, I said quietly. I'm going to handle him. Officer Gary Thompson arrived first, followed 3 minutes later by a white sedan with Department of Human Services plates. I'd dealt with DHS plenty of times during my career, usually when insurance fraud cases crossed into family welfare territory, knew the protocols, the procedures, the way they approached these situations. The caseworker was a woman named Patricia Wells, Someone I'd encountered maybe 3 times over the years on property damage cases that involved children. Harold Mitchell. She looked confused, then concerned. "What are you doing here?" "This is my son's house," I said, the words feeling strange in my mouth. "That's my granddaughter on the couch. I didn't know she existed until 2 hours ago." Patricia's expression shifted through surprise, understanding, then professional detachment. She'd been in this job long enough to know that families could hide anything, that the worst secrets often lived behind the nicest facades. She took my statement first, then Jennifer's officer Thompson photographed everything. The attic space, the wardrobe, the makeshift living area with its camping mattress and plastic plates. All standard procedure for a child endangerment case, but it felt surreal watching them document my son's crime scene. Then they took Sophie to Portland General for examination. She held onto my hand when the paramedics approached with their bright smiles and gentle voices. "I'll follow right behind you," I promised her. "I'm not going anywhere." At the hospital, they ran every test imaginable. Blood work, x-rays, psychological evaluation. While doctors examined Sophie, I sat with Patricia in the waiting area and started getting the real picture. "We pulled her records," Patricia said, scrolling through her tablet. "Sophie Mitchell, mother deceased 2 years ago, ovarian cancer. Father Kevin Mitchell was granted full custody after the mother's death. 2 years. Kevin had been hiding his daughter for 2 years, ever since Ashley came into the picture. Ever since they got married and decided Sophie didn't fit their perfect image." "What about financial support?" I asked. "Monthly survivor benefits from Social Security. $1 to $200 deposited into an account in Sophie's name. Let me guess. Kevin had access to that account." She looked at me sharply. "How did you know?" "Because I spent 35 years investigating fraud. Check his bank records. You'll find systematic withdrawals that match his personal expenses. Restaurant charges, vacation bookings, car payments. He's been using her money to fund their lifestyle while keeping her locked in an attic." Patricia made notes on her tablet. "We'll subpoena everything." The doctor came out 4 hours later with results that made my blood boil. Sophie was severely malnourished, dehydrated, showing signs of prolonged stress and isolation. No physical abuse, thank God, but clear evidence of systematic neglect. They wanted to keep her overnight for observation and IV fluids. I went in to see her. She was lying in a hospital bed that looked enormous compared to her small frame, hooked up to an IV and monitors. "Grandpa Harold," she said when I sat down. She was testing the words, seeing how they felt. "I'm here, sweetheart. The doctor said I'm going to be okay, that I just need to eat more and get stronger." "That's right. And you're going to do that at my house, where nobody can hurt you anymore." My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia about emergency kinship placement procedures. I responded immediately. "I want her placed with me." I drove home near midnight, my apartment feeling different somehow, smaller, but also full of possibility. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I didn't drink and thought about what came next. On my desk was my old case folder system, still organized the way I'd learned 35 years ago. Next to it was my retirement ID badge. Harold Mitchell, senior fraud investigator, 3.5 decades of walking into situations like this, except I'd always been the outside observer, the one documenting evidence, building cases, exposing the truth. Now I was the victim's family, but I still knew how the system worked. Knew what evidence would hold up in court, what procedures would protect Sophie, how to build a case that would stand against any defense attorney Kevin might hire. 2 days later, my phone rang at 7 a.m. Kevin's voice, panic barely controlled. "Dad, what the hell is going on? The police called us. They said Sophie was found, that she's in the hospital, that you're involved somehow, so they knew." "Good. I found a malnourished child locked in a closet in your attic, Kevin. What did you expect me to do? She's my daughter. This is a misunderstanding. You were just what? Stealing her money? Hiding her from the world? Keeping her like a dirty secret while you post vacation photos?" Silence on the other end, then Ashley's voice in the background, shrill and getting louder. "We're coming home," Kevin said. "We're going to sort this out. You do that. I'm sure the district attorney would love to hear your explanation." I hung up and got back to work. Over the next 6 weeks, I built the kind of airtight case I'd spent my career perfecting. Bank records showing $28,800 systematically stolen from Sophie's account over 24 months. Medical records documenting severe neglect. Neighbor testimony that they'd never seen a child at the house. Photographic evidence of the living conditions. The court hearing was a massacre. Kevin and Ashley's attorney tried everything, claimed it was temporary, said they were renovating. argued I was interfering. My lawyer, Diana Foster, methodically destroyed every defense. The judge, Margaret Hayes, had seen enough child neglect cases to recognize the real thing. Kevin got 36 months in state prison. Ashley got 30 months. Both lost any rights to work with children. They had to repay every stolen penny plus my legal fees. Most importantly, I got permanent custody of Sophie. That was 10 months ago. Sophie's doing better now, gaining weight, sleeping through the night without nightmares. She's in kindergarten, making friends, learning to laugh again. She helps me work on engines in the garage, has a real talent for understanding how things fit together. Sometimes I catch her looking at me with those big brown eyes, and I can see her wondering if I'm going to disappear like everyone else has, but I won't. I'm 57 years old, I've got a good pension, and I've found my new purpose. Kevin calls from prison sometimes, I don't answer. He's got 2 more years to think about what family really means. If you're watching this video, maybe you're a father or grandfather yourself. Maybe you've got kids who've drifted away, family members who've forgotten what matters. Here's what I learned. When someone vulnerable needs protecting, you don't wait for permission. You don't make excuses. You use every tool you have, every skill you've learned, every connection you've made. Because at the end of the day, family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about showing up when it counts. And if you've got the knowledge and experience to make a difference, you've got the responsibility to use it. Don't let the people who matter slip away into darkness while you're waiting for the perfect moment to act.